€1 million a day. The European Court of Justice imposes a record fine on Poland for ignoring the ruling to suspend its Supreme Court disciplinary chamber. The ECJ wanted the controversial mechanism for disciplining judges disbanded over concerns about its impartiality. Relations between Warsaw and Brussels have been severely strained for several months over the issue of rule of law within Poland. Its refusal to comply with what the EU considers one of its core values has set the two on a collision course, as Shona Murray reports.
Poland has been ordered to pay a fine of €1 million per day over its controversial changes to its justice system. The European Court of Justice, which issued the fine, says the measures will be in place until Warsaw abides by an ECJ ruling back in July, which ordered the immediate suspension of the disciplinary chamber of the Polish Supreme Court. The legal action was taken by the European Commission, which says the chamber threatens the independence of the courts and therefore the application of EU law.
It's not an overly strong reaction. This is a very normal procedure that if ECJ rulings are ignored, then there is a fine that is imposed for that. The dialogue with the Polish government has been going on for 6 years and has led to a situation where increasingly court rulings are ignored and where the so-called constitutional tribunal in Poland, which is basically a puppet court of the government, is openly defiant against EU law. So that at least the European Court of Justice is protecting the rule of law is a good signal. It would be great if the governments in the Council would join the battle for our democracy and our rule of law.
Many lawyers across Europe and Poland view the chamber as a tool to pressure Polish judges to rule in favour of the Polish government. The Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki told the European Parliament last week that the chamber would be abolished, but didn't say when. A spokesperson for the Polish government has reacted by saying, "The way of punishments and blackmail towards our country is not the right way." The fines can be deducted from EU funds that Poland receives from Brussels. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Let's bring in Shona Murray, who joins us live from Brussels. Shona, good to see you. This is the highest daily fine for any bloc member. It just shows how serious the EU is taking this. But if Warsaw refuses to pay, what more can Brussels actually do?
Well, Brussels, as I said there, can deduct the money out of the funding that Poland receives from the European Union. It receives a huge amount of money, Paul. We're talking about €120 billion in cohesion funding for the first budget alone. Never mind the €24 billion it's due to receive from the recovery fund in grants and 12 billion of loans. So it has money that the EU can take from. But let's just talk to Professor Gavin Barrett, Professor of EU Law at your University College Dublin. This court, Gavin, it's a disciplinary chamber, the Polish government says. The idea is that it roots out judges who are part of the former communist regime and who have a particular way of judging. Does that idea hold weight as far as you're concerned?
No, it doesn't. We already have rulings of the European Court of Justice in relation to this, saying that effectively what Poland is engaging in violates European Union law and it violates the requirements of the rule of law, which are written all over the treaties. They're in the treaties' aims, they're in the treaties' the fundamental values that are espoused by the treaties. And if the rule of law means anything, it means having independent courts. And the idea of independent courts is being trampled all over by the measures and the Polish government has taken, the laws it has adopted, and what has been going on with the Polish courts, and incidentally the Hungarian courts as well, although it's focusing in on Poland in relation to this present controversy.
And how does that impact the EU per se, in terms of, I suppose, the application of EU law that everybody else has to abide by?
Well, it affects it in at least two ways. One of them is that the way in which European Union law is applied is via national courts. If national courts are not applying European Union law, then really a crucial thread upon which the entire mighty apparatus of European Union law depends is severed. And really, then rulings of the Court of Justice just become rulings in a faraway court about which people care very little. So in actual fact, the role of national courts is absolutely crucial, and it's very necessary that they comply and are in compliance with European Union law. And then, quite apart from that, the Court of Justice has taken the view that it is necessary in a European Union which is based on certain values, democracy, the rule of law, and human rights, that the courts meet certain standards. So, even quite apart from the necessity to have courts which will apply European Union law correctly, it's also necessary that each and every member state has courts which comply with the rule of law and match up to those standards, because that's regarded as being fundamental and inherent in the very idea of a European Union.
The European Court of Justice, of course, has imposed this fine, but the Council and the Commission, which is the guardian of the treaties, has done very little over the last 6 to 10 years to deal with this situation. What do you think has to happen now?
Well, there are a number of options open to the European Union. I suppose one of them we're seeing in action. It's true that the Commission and the Council have done relatively little, but the Commission has upped the ante somewhat by bringing a series of prosecutions against Poland. And really, this case is the outcome of interim measures sought by the Commission in proceedings brought by the Commission against Poland in relation to the disciplinary tribunal and in relation to other invidious measures in this in the Polish legal system concerning its court. So the Commission, if you like, has done that at least. The other thing I suppose they can do is they can activate the rule of law mechanism under Article 7, but that has a number of flaws to it, in particular the requirement of unanimity. And Poland can rely, for example, on Hungary blocking any measures being taken against it under that measure. A third thing that can be done then is the application of financial conditionality, which is, in other words, requiring compliance with rule of law standards before Poland gets, for example, the 36 billion euro it has been promised under the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Poland receives a large amount of money at the moment, in its annual GDP. It's about a net 13 billion euro every single year from the European Union at the moment. So the European Union does have a lot of financial firepower there, and if it conditionalized those particular payments, you might see a different attitude emerging on the part of the Polish government. Whether the European Union is prepared to do that or not is a different matter. Certainly, Ursula von der Leyen indicated that it would be in a speech to the European Parliament recently. But since then, we've had a European Council and a much less activist position on the part of the European Council being indicated. Angela Merkel, in particular, indicating that litigation and confrontation wasn't the way to proceed in relation to this. Although one would have to pose the question that if that isn't the way forward, well, what exactly is she proposing? And as you indicated, I think correctly at the outset of this interview, quite a number of years have gone by without Germany or the other member states doing a great deal in relation to the rule of law. And it's not a situation that is tenable, I think, in the long term.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Professor Gavin Barrett of University College Dublin.